This video serves as a guide to help you as a woman burn some more fat. Look, it's not a miracle. I'm not gonna give you just these tricks that are gonna magically make you lose all the weight, but I am gonna give you a lot of interesting scientific tidbits that you can capitalize on to get a little bit more in the way of your weight loss and fat loss. And this is specifically targeted towards women because, believe it or not, there's specific fat burning pathways that women activate more so than men. So although they still apply to men in some degree, they're going to apply more so to you. So we're gonna leverage what you have as far as your fat burning enzymes, and we're gonna leverage what you have as far as different hormones to your advantage to get the maximum amount of weight loss that we possibly can so you can feel amazing and be your best self. I do wanna ask that you hit that red subscribe button. We have new videos coming out every single day surrounding the world of intermittent fasting, nutrition tactics, the occasional workout tactic, but also just metabolic health in general. And then please do hit that little bell icon and select all notifications so you can be part of my notification squad and never miss our daily videos. First thing that I'm going to touch on is cardio for a minute. And then I'm going to start getting into more of the biohack and more of the nutrition stuff. I got to touch on cardio. Everyone says that cardio shouldn't be done by women and that you just go in the gym and if you go and doing cardio forever, it's not going to get you any result. Look, we've all heard it. The sad truth is cardio is still good for you as a woman. The thing is, you need to do cardio at a higher intensity. Look, at low intensity cardio burns more fat, relatively speaking. Okay, what that means is the lower the intensity that you're working out or the lower intensity of the cardio, as a relative figure, you burn a larger percentage of fat, but the absolute amount of fat you burn is less. You see, if you increase the intensity, yes, the ratio of fat that you burn is slightly smaller, but the overall amount that you burn by training at a higher intensity is significantly more and vastly supersedes that ratio. In fact, the steep decrease in fat utilization during cardio doesn't start until about 70% of your maximum intensity. So that means you can train at 69.999% of your maximum potential before you ever start to see a decline in the amount of fat that you're utilizing. So those that tell you to walk at a really slow pace on a treadmill or just go on a simple cruise on the elliptical and you're gonna burn more fat are dead wrong. You're gonna burn more fat if you push it and push it a little bit harder and burn that fat, especially because you are a female and the higher intensity is going to elicit more of what is called a norepinephrine response. And women respond really well to norepinephrine, which we'll talk about more in a minute, so stick with me. Now the other thing, it's a common knowledge within the scientific community that as you increase your level of fitness, the maximum amount of fat oxidation increases. So what that means is the more in shape that you get, the more that you condition yourself to do higher intensity cardio, the more percentage of fat you will burn at still even a higher intensity. So what that means is if you take someone that is not conditioned and doesn't do a lot of cardio and they're not an athlete, they might stop burning fat at 70% of their max intensity. But if you take someone that's been pushing it a little bit, they actually stop utilizing fat maybe at 80 or 85%, which means you can overall burn more largely amount of calories from fat at a higher intensity. It's what you want. Let's not forget the fact that a higher intensity is also going to elicit a higher post-workout afterburn effect. We're talking up to 200 calories over the course of a day if you work out at a higher intensity with your cardio. So extra calories that you're burning throughout the course of the day. It's just something you really should focus on. So here's why we should be paying attention to that. There's a study that was published in the Journal of Applied Physiology, Nutrition, and Metabolism. Okay, and it noted that women, in response to submaximal activity, so submaximal workouts, burned more fat than men. Okay, they utilized more fat than men. And it all has to do with, once again, that norepinephrine. See, norepinephrine is like adrenaline. So when we work out, we have a spike of adrenaline. And men and women have that. It just turns out that women respond to it better and get the advantage of the fat burning effect from it much more than men. Why is this? Well, if you look at it from any kind of evolutionary standpoint, women have higher body fat levels than men. Okay, that's just naturally biology, right? Well, you would think that that means women are just storing fat. No, it means that they are better fat burners. Because if you were to go into a time of famine where you couldn't eat, your body would be more conditioned to utilize the fat that you have on your body. So you're a better fat burner. Whereas men who are naturally a little bit leaner that's a little bit more secondary to them. So let's capitalize on this. So the next set of this video, I'm talking about how you can maximize the effect of noradrenaline, norepinephrine, on your fat-burning enzymes and processes in the body. So the first thing you want to focus on is hitting that sauna. Saunas have been demonstrated in multiple studies to be effective, but there was one study in particular that took a look at women. It found that 30 minutes in a sauna dramatically increased the amount of free fatty acids available in their bloodstream, more so than men. So that means if you go sit in a sauna for 20 or 30 minutes, you're gonna have more fats liberated into the bloodstream, probably as a result of norepinephrine. And the reason that women have more success in a sauna than men in that case is because they're more sensitive to the norepinephrine. So capitalize on that. Is it going to be a huge difference compared to men? Maybe not. It's going to be enough for you to get a benefit that men can't, so go for it. On the other side of that same exact coin is cold exposure, like literally standing out in the cold, or working out in the cold, or taking a cold shower, or doing a cold plunge. That does the same kind of thing, big spike in noradrenaline. And because you respond better to noradrenaline, or norepinephrine, potato, you might as well capitalize on it. So one day do a sauna, one day do cold exposure. Sauna, cold exposure. Now we get into the foods, but they still have a relationship with this noradrenaline. You see, women have a higher level of brown fat. Brown fat is metabolically active. It is virtually brown because it has more blood flow, because there's blood going through it, and because it has more mitochondria. It has more energy powerhouses because it's actually metabolically active. Women have more of it. So that means we want to capitalize on it, because brown fat is only truly metabolically active if it's actually activated. So think of it like a radiator heater, okay? And this radiator heater has the potential to emit heat, meaning takes in the calories that you consume and just emits them as heat. Hey, free calorie burning, I'm gonna take it. But you have to plug that radiator in, you have to turn it on, right? You have to activate it. So there's some specific foods that help activate it. And these are specific foods that will work well for women. For one, capsaicin, or capsaicin, again, potato. This is gonna be cayenne pepper, chili powder, things like that. Now, multiple studies show an increase of thermogenesis with capsaicin or capsaicin, right? But it's going to help fat burning and help thermogenesis specifically within the brown fat, which you have more of. So add it to your coffee, add it to your apple cider vinegar drink in the morning, add it to your food, take it in a capsule if you can't handle it. It's really effective, and I highly recommend that you do. Then another thing you want to consider adding is curcumin. Now, there was a study that was published in Biochemical and Biophysical Research that showed that curcumin has a browning effect on white fat. So women have more brown fat, but that doesn't mean that you're mostly brown fat. You still have a lot of white fat, which is just insulation, really. Well, if you use curcumin, this study suggests that it's going to help turn some of that white fat into brown fat, which could help you out with fat burning even more, give you more of that brown fat. So add some curcumin to your food. Again, add it to your coffee, things like that. And there's a lot of foods that I typically recommend for women, whether it's for this particular effect or just hormonal effects. And I will go ahead and say, if you want to check out Thrive Market down below in the description, I did put a link there, and I've created specific like hormone boxes, thyroid boxes. They're all like grocery boxes, things that I would recommend that you get at the grocery store, but you can get them through Thrive Market, which is an online membership-based grocery store. So they're a big supporter, a big sponsor of this channel. I greatly appreciate all they do for this channel. So if you want to check them out down below in the description, please do so after this video, and you can get the grocery bundles that I recommend. Again, it's like going grocery shopping with me. So highly recommend it. They're super awesome, cheaper than a lot of grocery stores in many cases. So check them out afterwards. Okay, the next one that I want you to consume is going to be green tea throughout the day. And this goes for men too. Green tea has a very powerful effect because of the catechins. It acts upon your brown fat once again and helps upregulate the thermogenic properties. So within this same vein of talking about adrenaline and norepinephrine and all this, we have to look at fasting too. Now for women, I suggest looking at fasting a little bit different. I generally say not to fast as long and don't fast as frequently because you have a hormonal cycle you need to worry about that men don't need to worry about. That being said, you can also leverage hormone fluctuations to your advantage. Okay, a couple weeks into your cycle, you have a higher level of estrogen and a lower level of progesterone. Higher levels of estrogen are going to provide you with a lot of satiety. So it's a perfect time to experiment with some longer fasts. The longer that you fast, the more epinephrine and norepinephrine that you produce, which means you're going to have a better response. Believe it or not, women respond better to fasting than men, which is why women can get away with a slightly shorter fast than men. But if you do want to experiment with longer fasts, north of 20 hours, I would suggest doing it during the second week of your cycle. If you're postmenopausal, it doesn't matter as much, then you don't have to worry about it quite so much. Try to shorten your fasts when you're through the progesterone period, when you're towards the end of your cycle. If you notice that you get hungry towards the end of your cycle, that's normal. And it's been proven in studies that estrogen is very, very satiating. So experiment with the fasting then, and the estrogen also gives you a little bit of an inflammatory buffer to help you out with that. One kind of fun fact too is that the journal Cell Metabolism did make a note that fasting induces brown fat as well. So that means, there you go, more brown fat, which you already have a lot of. So let's add more to the fire and make you even more of a fat burning machine, right? Okay, then another thing, I'm just going to touch on it lightly, is yoga. Because there's one study in particular that demonstrated that women that did 12 weeks of yoga showed quite a reduction in their BMI and their waist-to-hip ratio. And they didn't really change anything else. Kind of cool, okay? I think it probably has something to do with stress modulation, but probably has something to do with lymphatic movement as well, getting the lymphatic fluids going. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because it's not my area of expertise, but I think it's worth considering. Okay, and lastly, I want to talk about particular supplementation that you might want to think about. Number one is going to be vitamin D. Vitamin D, largely associated with weight loss. One study in particular, 6 weeks of vitamin D for women resulted in a big reduction in weight loss versus those that didn't have vitamin D. Now this goes for men too. In fact, arguably it works even better for men, but it's something that women definitely need to focus on. Then the British Journal Nutrition published something interesting on probiotics. For one reason or another, this particular study showed that women responded really well to probiotics. It could have something to do with women maybe being more prone to autoimmune condition or more prone to lipopolysaccharides leaching into the bloodstream. I don't really have an honest answer for you. It's just interesting research, and I thought that it's worth including in this, that maybe you want to consider taking a probiotic, but more importantly, consuming probiotic-rich foods, sauerkraut, cottage cheese, yogurt, things like that. And then lastly, women need to make sure that they're eating enough protein. You're not going to bulk up, you're not going to magically build a ton of muscle and look the way you don't want to look. There are studies that demonstrate, once again, that when protein is high, you are granted a lot more flexibility with your diet. So eat a lot of protein. 30 to 50% of your nutritional intake should be from protein, in my honest opinion, especially if you're towards the end of your cycle and those progesterone levels are higher. Okay, again, manipulate it so you're not hungry. That way you're not craving the chocolate as much because you're filling up on protein. Plenty of studies backing up the satiety effect of protein. Anyhow, I hope this was helpful. As always, please keep it locked in. Don't forget to check out Thrive Market down below in the description. And thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow.